right, so today we're going to be discussing the book Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, and specifically part 2, and addressing the question, why do we need leaders at all? So the topic that stood out the most to me was the idea of not quite organization, but just unity within a community. So the example that they used in the book was if hunters bring back a deer, the strongest people would typically get it first, but that's not a great way for humanity to survive. So you need leaders to kind of provide channels for each individual person and their own talents to survive within your larger community, whether that's at a school level, a family level, or in a company. So that's one of the biggest things that leaders provide, at least in my eyes, based on what I read in the book.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, strong leaders are those who look out for those around them, right? Another point that I wanted to bring up would be that leaders are the ones that set the culture. And I see that a lot these days because a lot of people are quitting their jobs. And I've heard the phrase, people are not quitting their jobs, they're quitting their managers. So setting a good, culture within whatever organization, that I feel is a quality and a responsibility of leaders.
One point that really stuck out to me in the book was that leaders are there to support and protect their people. So they are basically, in the book it says they're looking out for the people to the left and to the right of them, and they will go out of their way to basically make sacrifices for their team. And once they gain the trust of their team and they're making the personal sacrifices, they show that they're the alpha material and remain a leader within their environment.
Yeah, one point that stood out to me is that leaders really organize the people that are around them. So like Adrian said, leaders make that culture what it is. And by sacrificing themselves and really creating a good group, we can reduce the stress that can really tear a group apart. And that's really the leader's job in that role.
Great.
Okay, I think everybody had good points there. Is there anything we want to discuss with the last couple minutes? Anything that we wanted to dive deeper on?
I think that idea of sacrifice for leaders, building trust. I think there was an example with if certain leaders like Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa got a big sum of money, people wouldn't really blink an eye because they know already that they have set that culture in themselves to sacrifice for others. Whereas, some leaders get lost and they stop looking out for other people and they get kind of consumed with making themselves get up higher and the perks of their position. And I think that was a really good way to connect it all.
I think too as well, earlier in the book they talked about the Spartans, which was what the movie 300 was based off of, and how it's okay if you lose your helmet or your breastplate, but if you lose your shield, like come home with your shield or come home on it kind of mindset of all, like, you lead, you are a part of a team, and if you don't have your shield, you become the weak spot and the way to target the group. And with those Spartans being leaders, they live by those tenets and that way of life, and so that nobody else in the group is like, oh, well, you're high up, I can't talk to you, you're going to be all high up. No, they're right on the battlefield with you, sacrificing their lives.
Yeah, and to build off that, like when people feel protected, they will work as a team. Like, so for example, in the book, it talked about when the business wasn't doing well, and instead of laying all the people off, people took turns sacrificing time off without pay. And people would even like trade with each other. Like, I can't afford to do 4 weeks, but I can do 3. Like, could you like pick up an extra week without pay? Like, so when everybody is working together, I think it really shows like a strong leader when you have that team that works together.
And I think another point that was brought up specifically in this book was the like endorphins and all of the hormones and everything going on in people's brains. And at the end of the day, like we all want to feel a sense of belonging and we all want to feel protected. So having, touching on that, everybody is making sacrifices for themselves because leadership has an idea, or, everybody having to have their shields to protect one another. Like at the end of the day, you want your leader to be eating last, the one who's going to sacrifice the most, the one who is going to be serving their staff or their community, because we all feel safest when there's somebody kind of protecting us, not necessarily in charge, but protecting or kind of there as the bigger voice.
Yeah, and even the leader will like suffer for the good of their people. Which it definitely states throughout the book in part 2. So does anybody have any final thoughts? Okay, cool. So thanks everybody for coming and participating in the discussion.